of times people look at the face paint and stuff with masks. Go right ahead and look good. Look all the way inside. You know what I mean? You're gonna see what's up. I'm only here that you would be better than who you think you can be. That's what I'm here for. Anybody that's ever fought for Tap Out will know I told them this. I don't care if you win your next 10 or lose them all. I'm gonna support you and back you unconditionally. Because you're a warrior. Not in it to be Mr. Billionaire. I'm in it to do what's right in my heart and in my vision. Just because you weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth doesn't mean you can't turn your roads to gold. Just because you come from hard times and disbelief and doubt and discouragement doesn't mean you can't be the best and go way out past beyond anybody ever thought you could. Whether or not you make it, whether or not I make it to be a Nike or not, I'm not saying I ain't gonna try. I'm gonna try, but if I don't make it, I gotta respect myself enough to say I'm gonna at least try. Because maybe it might not be me that touches 1 million people, but maybe I'll touch that one that'll touch 1 million. That's what it's about, man. Sometimes you gotta know the man, know the person. At the end of the day, that's what everything's about. That somebody would be maybe just a little happier because you're here, you know?
So for those of you that don't know, Charles Lewis was the co-founder of Tap Out, who was killed this year in a car accident. And this is a guy who, you know, why are we putting Charles Lewis into the UFC Hall of Fame? When Lorenzo and I first met him back in 2001 when we bought the UFC, this is a guy who, you know, had just this aura about him and this persona. This is a guy that, I don't care when you met him, what happened in his life that day, what was going on in the world, this guy was never in a bad mood. He was never a downer, he was never bummed out. He was always upbeat and positive about everything. And he was a big part of helping us, you know, attack a lot of grassroots marketing and getting the UFC out there. Tap Out was an established brand with the hardcore fans when we bought the UFC. And every shipment they would send out, they'd be putting UFC flyers in there. I mean, anything Charles Lewis and Dan and Scrape and the guys from Tap Out could do to help grow the sport or improve things, he did. He was an amazing human being, loved life, loved this sport, and basically, you know, like many of us, and there's lots of people in this room who are exhibitors here or fans who absolutely 100% dedicated his life to this sport when it looked like there was never going to be any money in this sport. You know, it's easy to say, yeah, I want to get into mixed martial arts now. It's a booming, thriving, multi-billion-dollar business. Back then, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. It didn't look like anybody was ever going to make $1 in the sport. But there was a group of people that existed that believed in this thing to the end. I mean, they were willing to dedicate their life to it and get up every day and work hard to help grow this sport. And this is a guy who, you know, at a time when there really was no money in this sport, was spending money he didn't have to sponsor fighters. You know, pretty much everybody you saw in the old days, you know, wore either Tap Out or a couple other, you know, small clothing companies that existed then. So you want to talk about risk takers, innovators, guys who have a vision and guys who believe in something where they're willing to risk everything to do it. Charles Lewis and the guys from Tap Out are just like us. They were here before us, okay? Chuck Liddell is a little emotional right now because he and Charles were really, I think it was Chuck's first sponsor was Tap Out, and he and Charles were really close, very, very close friends, and I thought it was cool to induct them both into the Hall of Fame at the same time. So I'm going to bring out the guys from Tap Out to accept Charles Mass Lewis induction into the UFC Hall of Fame.
I got goosebumps, and I think I was going to tell Dana that's Charles. He's here watching, and it's harder than I thought it was going to be. I got to thank me, Mark, and Scrape. Got to thank Dana White and Lorenzo for believing in us when nobody else did, and we believed in them. And Charles loved the UFC so much, and he loved the fans. I'm telling you, I can't even explain to you how much he loved the fans and he loved the fighters. And I mean, when we first went to the very first, or watched the very first UFC on television, and we were just glued to the screen, and we both just said this was going to be something, and he just, a few years later said, we got to start a clothing company that's built around this, and we went to the first UFC, and he just always knew, he always believed that this is what was going to happen, and he never stopped believing, and you know, I learned a lot from him, and I continue to learn a lot from him, and it's awesome how he's still touching lives even after his passing. And Charles will always be remembered, and I'm telling you, he loved you guys. He always talked about the fans. He really did love the fans, the fighters, and he loved these guys here who own the UFC, and they've always been great guys. We love them. Thank you.
Dana, Lorenzo, Frank, I don't know if you're here, but I want to thank you also. We love you guys so much. It couldn't be better that Chuck and Charles being put in at the same time, because I don't know if you guys know, but they were so close. It was one of Charles's best friends besides us. And for this to be them together like that is amazing. But you think about the sport, when you get into something athletic, you get in for pretty much three reasons. You get in for one, because you love it. A fighter, a basketball player, a football player, whatever, you do it because you love it. Two, you do it to be a champion. And three, for the Hall of Fame. You know, we're not fighters. Charles wasn't a fighter, you know, but we fought a different type of fight to try to make MMA the biggest sport ever. Being a champion, you know, we're just trying to succeed. If we make, you know, the sport's a success, but it's not a success like these guys wanted, like Mask wanted it, like we wanted it. But the Hall of Fame, man, is, you know, I can't even say enough to these guys how much we appreciate it, and how much we love you guys, and how much we know that you love Charles and us. And all you guys, and the fans. Thank you guys for coming out. I see a lot of tap-out shirts out there. Keep supporting the sport, supporting these guys and everybody. Thank you guys.
Hey, it says a lot about who these guys are to induct Charles into the Hall of Fame. And, I just got to say that we really do love these guys, and keep supporting the UFC. And Charles's award will be on display in the Fighters Museum here at Mandalay Bay, so go check it out. Thank you.
All right, for those of you, I don't know, those of you that have tickets, or I don't know how this thing works, but there's a party tonight at the beach. I'm going to be out there, and some of the fighters are going to be out there. If you guys have tickets, I'll see you out there. If you don't, that sucks. Thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it.